What if I told you that two currencies that almost everyone once laughed at, dismissed as worthless, and ignored are now starting to make worldwide headlines? Yes, I'm talking about the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong. For years, these two currencies have been the subject of rumors, speculation, and countless debates. People called them dead money and said anyone holding them was wasting their time. But today, in 2025, something shocking is happening. These currencies are gaining recognition in ways we haven't seen in decades. And what you're about to hear could completely change how you look at global finance, international politics, and your own financial future. Stay with me until the end of this report, because I'm going to break down why these currencies matter, why leadership has held them back, and why their rise could be the biggest financial story of this decade. Let's begin with the Iraqi dinar, often called IQD in financial circles. Before the Gulf War in the 1990s, the dinar was one of the most respected currencies in the world. Believe it or not, it once traded at over $3 for a single dinar. Oil was sold using dinars and Iraq's economy was internationally recognized. But after years of war, sanctions, and political instability, the value of the dinar collapsed. What used to be a powerful national symbol became nearly worthless on global markets. For decades, investors and everyday people alike have been holding on, waiting for the day the currency regains its former strength. And now, after years of delay, reforms in Iraq's financial system and stronger ties with international banking institutions are slowly but surely laying the groundwork for reinstatement. This is why so many are watching the dinar very closely in 2025. Now, let's look at Vietnam's currency, the dong or VND. While it doesn't have the same war-torn story as Iraq, the Vietnamese dong has faced its own challenges. Despite Vietnam's steady economic growth, industrial strength, and strong trade networks, the dong has been undervalued for decades. Vietnam has become one of the most important manufacturing hubs in the world, supplying everything from electronics to clothing. Yet its currency doesn't reflect its economic reality. For years, major investors have argued that the dong is being held down artificially, waiting for international recognition to boost its value. And just like the Iraqi dinar, the Vietnamese dong is now attracting renewed attention because the global financial environment is changing, and the opportunities for reassessment are stronger than ever before. So why haven't these currencies already been reinstated or recognized at their full potential? The answer is simple but frustrating: leadership. Currency values don't just change because a country decides it wants them to. They change when international partners, central banks, and global financial organizations agree that the country's economy is strong, stable, and trustworthy. In the past, Iraq and Vietnam have both struggled with international credibility, and much of that came down to how American leadership approached foreign policy and financial negotiations. For the last 4 years before 2025, many investors argue that the lack of strong, clear decision-making in Washington slowed down the progress that could have been made, but with new momentum building, the landscape looks different today. To really understand this, let's break down what reinstatement actually means for Iraq. When people say the Iraqi dinar needs reinstatement, they're talking about bringing it back to international trading status. Right now, Iraq has the oil reserves, the resources, and the economic potential to support a strong currency. But without global banking recognition, the dinar remains locked in a limited system. That means international businesses, banks, and investors hesitate to use it. But with each reform Iraq makes, each new banking partnership it secures, and each trade agreement it signs, the chances of reinstatement grow stronger. And when that reinstatement finally happens, the ripple effects could be enormous, not just for Iraq, but for investors and global markets. The Vietnamese dong tells a similar story, but with a twist. Unlike Iraq, Vietnam has enjoyed decades of steady economic growth. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, with strong relationships across Asia, Europe, and even the United States. Yet the dong remains artificially undervalued. Why? Because international policies and negotiations haven't kept pace with Vietnam's economic rise. For years, Vietnam has signed major trade agreements, built powerful export industries, and attracted global investors, yet its currency still trades at a fraction of what many argue it should be worth. The question is no longer whether Vietnam has earned recognition, it's when the rest of the world decides to finally acknowledge it. Here's where leadership enters the picture again. The United States dollar remains the world's reserve currency. That means whenever the US Treasury or Federal Reserve signals support for another country's currency, the rest of the world tends to follow. This influence is massive. But in the last 4 years leading up to 2025, many argue that the US government failed to provide clear direction. Important opportunities for recognition and agreements slipped away. For example, Iraq nearly rejoined the international banking system in 2022, with European banks ready to process dinar transactions. But delays and confusion from Washington meant that deal never materialized. Vietnam faced a similar situation in 23 with a major trade agreement. Without American backing, it fell apart, and Vietnam ended up signing with China instead. These missed opportunities aren't just abstract policy mistakes. They affect real people, real businesses, and real investments. Imagine being an American business owner who wanted to expand into Iraq or Vietnam, only to face roadblocks because the currencies weren't recognized internationally. Imagine being an investor who believed in the potential of these currencies, only to watch deal after deal fall through because of leadership gaps. This is why elections, policies, and negotiations matter so much in global finance. Currency isn't just about numbers, it's about trust, credibility, and stability. And without strong leadership guiding these processes, progress slows down or stops entirely. But here's the good news: 2025 looks different. Iraq's central bank has been working hard on internal reforms, building a stronger financial system that meets international standards. They've made progress in fighting corruption, stabilizing their economy, and improving their credibility with foreign investors. Vietnam, meanwhile, continues to shine as a manufacturing powerhouse, growing its economy year after year. Both countries are now in far stronger positions than they were even 5 years ago. And with global financial institutions paying closer attention, the chances of recognition are higher than ever. To understand why this matters so much, think about the bigger picture. Currency isn't just paper, it's power. When a country's currency is strong, it gives that nation leverage in international trade, stronger ties with global banks, and greater control over its economic destiny. When Iraq reinstates its dinar, it will no longer need to rely on workarounds to sell its oil or trade internationally. When Vietnam's dong gains recognition, it will give investors more confidence to pour money into one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. And for those holding these currencies, the potential upside could be life-changing. Some people might still call this speculation or a get-rich dream. But the reality is this: reinstatement is not a fantasy, it's a process. It's happening step by step through reforms, agreements, and negotiations. Iraq and Vietnam are not just waiting around. They are actively working with global partners, adjusting their financial systems, and preparing for international recognition. And in 2025, the momentum is stronger than ever. That's why so many financial analysts, investors, and everyday people are paying close attention. But success isn't automatic, it depends on decisions made by leaders, both in Iraq and Vietnam, and especially in the United States. The American government plays a huge role in signaling to the rest of the world when a currency is ready for recognition. That's why so many are watching the upcoming international summits and trade negotiations. These meetings could hold the key to whether the Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong finally receive the recognition they deserve. The stakes are high, and the opportunities are massive. So what should you, as a viewer, pay attention to? Look for official statements from the US Treasury and Federal Reserve about currency policies. Watch for announcements from IQD central bank and Vietnam's financial institutions about reforms and agreements. Pay attention to major trades being signed, especially those involving currency exchange provisions. These are the real signs of progress. Don't get lost in rumors, hype, or false promises. Focus on the actual moves being made at the highest levels of government and finance. It's also important to understand the global competition here. While the United States has influence, other countries like China and Russia are stepping in to fill the gaps when America doesn't lead. Both Iraq and Vietnam have already signed agreements with China, giving Beijing greater influence over their economies. If the United States doesn't step up and take a leadership role soon, we may see even more countries shift toward alternative currency arrangements. That would not only delay reinstatement, but also reduce American influence in global markets. This is why the next few years are going to be critical. The foundation has been laid. Iraq has oil reserves that could support a strong currency for decades. Vietnam has a booming economy that continues to expand globally. The pieces are all there. What remains is leadership. Leaders who understand international finance, leaders who can negotiate strong trade agreements, and leaders who can inspire confidence on the global stage. With the right leadership, the dinar and dong could transform from undervalued currencies into global financial powerhouses. For those who have been holding on to these currencies for years, I know the waiting has been frustrating. You've seen promises come and go. You've heard rumors that never came true. You've probably even faced criticism from people who said you were wasting your time. But history shows that real financial change takes time. Currencies don't shift overnight. It requires patience, persistence, and careful attention to the signs of progress. And right now, those signs are stronger than they've been in decades. So, as we stand here in 2025, the story of the Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong is still unfolding. They are no longer just worth currencies hidden in the background. They are stepping onto the global stage, backed by resources, growth, and reforms. The road hasn't been easy, and there are still challenges ahead. But with the right decisions made at the right time, we could be witnessing one of the most important financial transformations of our generation. The bottom line is simple: from worthless to worldwide. That's the journey of the Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong. These currencies symbolize more than money. They represent resilience, patience, and the power of leadership in shaping global finance. So keep your eyes open. Watch the negotiations, listen to the official statements, and pay attention to the moves being made in Washington, Baghdad, and Hanoi. Because when recognition finally arrives, it won't just change the value of a currency, it could change the financial future of millions. If you found this report helpful, hit like, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more updates on this incredible story.